the approach that I'm taking in talking about Hajj from a spiritual perspective, or for why we do what we do, for the reason that we go to that part of the world and we perform the actions that the fiqh piece explains to us. The reason that certain things are mandatory and certain things are obligatory and others are recommended and others are prohibited. It all falls under the purposes of Hajj, or what the goal of it is. And the way I've chosen to do it this year is talking about the three parallel lines of Hajj, or the three stories that you can reflect upon when you do Hajj. You can reflect on the first story, which is the story of Adam and Eve, and almost everything in Hajj can be backtracked to their experience, and to me it's very meaningful. It's probably the most meaningful of the three. And then the second one, which we're going to talk about today, inshallah ta'ala, is the stream of Ibrahim alayhi salam and his family. And this is the most famous of all. And it's what the Quran points out and talks about it quite a lot, and the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam as well in his hadith. And yesterday I kind of began talking about it, and I'll quickly just summarize what we covered. The story of Hajj with Ibrahim alayhi salam begins with him taking his wife and newly born son to the area of what today is Mecca. And Ibrahim alayhi salam had not been there before. He knew that somewhere to the south of the place he was living existed the remnants of the first house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At first he thought it was Jerusalem, because that is where Adam and Eve were buried. But then he came to find that that's not the case. Jibreel alayhi salam explained to him that that's not where the first house is. But he didn't know where it was yet. When he received the command that you were to take your wife and your son to a different part of the world, Buraq will take it there, he kind of figured that this is probably where he's taking them. To his surprise, he took them to an extremely empty piece of land, where there's nothing and no one there. There's nothing green coming in the from the ground. There was no water source. There was no people. There were no people for him to leave his wife with. There's nothing. It's just sand and rock. But that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to leave them, so that's what he did. And as he walked away, Hajar would call out upon him a few times. And then she would ask if this is a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he would imply that it was, and she would accept, alayhi salam, and she would say, if this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command, then he will not neglect us. If this, whatever plan he has for us is fine, as long as this is something that you're not just making up. So Ibrahim alayhi salam would go back on his way to Khalil, or to Jerusalem, leaving his son and wife there. And I can only imagine how difficult that must have been for him. In addition to the fact that he didn't come back for a couple of years. Like Ibrahim alayhi salam was not granted the permission to leave the Holy Land and go and visit his son and his wife. For a number of years later, Ismail was older. Of course, he would visit him many times throughout the years, but the first span was a couple of years before he went back. And the first story regarding Hajj that we were able to reflect upon comes from this from Ibrahim alayhi salam's journey and the fact that he left Mecca. Hajar alayhi salam was left with Ismail. And indeed, after a couple of hours maybe of her being with her son, her milk ran out and her water supply ran out as well. And there was nothing left to feed this few-day-old baby that she had. So she starts looking around. She begins just standing where she is. She had made a small pouch for her son to lie in, to protect him from the sun, the foothill of a small hill. And she would walk around. She didn't see anything. So she started to get farther and farther away from her son to look for provision, to look for people. And as you know, she arrived at two small mountains, two small hills, one called Al-Safa and the other one called Al-Marwa. And she would start with Al-Safa. She would stand on top of that mountain, and she would call at the top of her voice, as loud as she could, asking for help, asking for assistance, asking for support, asking if anyone can hear her voice. And then she would walk over to another kind of top hill that she could see and do the same. As she did this, as she walked back and forth, there was a point on her journey between these two mountains, or they're not really mountains, they're not really they're not large, but they're hills. Hills of rock, though, not of sand. When she was walking between them, going from one place to the other, calling, there was this point on her journey between these two where she was not able to see her son Ismail anymore. There was something blocking her vision. So she would jog. She would run quickly, move quickly so that she wouldn't lose sight of him. She wanted to make sure that she could see him at all times as she was doing this, because you never know, a snake or an animal of the desert may come and try and harm him. So that's why when you go perform sa'i, there are the green lights, and you're supposed to kind of jog between the green lights, and that's where she did it, alayhi salam. And it's interesting that this ritual in Hajj, in Umrah, and this is a rukn, this is one of the pillars of Hajj. If you don't perform sa'i, then for the majority of the schools of jurisprudence, you lose your Hajj altogether. So you must perform sa'i, is the footsteps of a lady, a great lady, Hajar. She's the one who started this. And it's called within our deen a sa'i. And this is a very important, you have to understand, you think about what this means. You see, Hajar alayhi salam, she went back and forth 7 times. Each time coming to the top of each mountain and calling at the top of her voice, jogging in between wherever she couldn't see her son. And she did it for 7 times. At the 7th time, she heard a sound. She heard something. فَقَالَتْ قَدْ أَسْمَعْتَ فَهَلْ عِنْدَكَ غِوَاث, in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, you have made yourself heard. I mean, she heard something. She was like, whoever that is, I acknowledge your presence. Do you have ghiwath? Do you have something, aid? Do you have anything to aid me? Anything at all? But no response came. Right? So she looks over and she sees Ismail alayhi salam. But this time Ismail alayhi salam is not alone. Jibreel is there with him. And at his foot, alayhi salam, Jibreel would strike the earth. And from the earth, Zamzam would come. And he would leave. Now, before we talk about Zamzam, the story here is of extreme importance of why it is that we walk the footsteps of Hajar alayhi salam. You see, Hajar alayhi salam taught something with what she did here, an Islamic concept that we take to heart, and it's a part of our mentality and our perspective of being Muslim. Sa'i in Arabic means to strive towards something or to work towards a goal, right? وَأَلَّيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, the human being will only get Yawm al-Qiyamah that which he worked towards achieving. Meaning you get the achievement even though you didn't necessarily achieve it within your life. As long as you work towards it, you're going to get what you achieved. Whatever you work towards in your life, whatever you dedicated your life towards achieving, Yawm al-Qiyamah you cash in. You actually get that, you come as if you've achieved it. As if you got what it is that you set out to accomplish. Even though maybe in this lifetime you did not. You were not successful at achieving that. But this is what you dedicated your life for. You did your best. You exhausted all of your resources and you tried the hardest you could. And that's all that matters. And Hajar alayhi salam, if you think about it, her journey back and forth between Safa wal Marwa was pretty much useless. It didn't achieve anything at all. Like there was no point. Jibreel didn't need her to find them. Like he knew where Ismail alayhi salam was. Her walking between the mountains did not bring Jibreel alayhi salam. He didn't suddenly find an emotional spot and decide to come and help them. He was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do this. But he was sent a bit later so that this story could occur. So that Hajar alayhi salam could get up and try her best. The concept that we have in Islam is that you always try your best. Even if you have good reason to believe that your best is useless. Even if you have very good reason to believe, even if the odds say that your best is going to be absolutely useless, you still try it. You're still obligated to do all that you can do in any given situation. You're never allowed, there's no circumstance where you get up to sit around. This is such an embedded part of our philosophy as Muslims that even when it comes to drought, what effect can you have on the clouds or on the wind or the temperature that's going to exist a couple of kilometers up into the sky? Nothing. Yet you're not allowed to sit around and do nothing. We still do have Salat al-Istisqa. We have to do something. Even though this is a situation where we have no control over the outcomes at all. Like nothing we're doing is pragmatic. It's not a practical, there's no practicality to it. We're always going to do that which is pragmatically impactful on the outcome. But even when there's a situation where you have nothing that you can do, practically speaking, you still have to do something, which is why we go do Salat al-Istisqa. We all go out, you change, you flip the clothes inside out, and you take your family and your children and the animals, and you go and you pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you do this a couple of nights in a row until you get until you get the rain. Because even something like that, where we have no control, we still have to perform something public, like in congregation. And Hajar alayhi salam, she did her best. This was the best she could do. She thought about her situation, what she could do, and this is the best she could do. If she carried her son with her, she would get tired. She wouldn't go 7 times, so she wouldn't be able to call as much. If she went too far, she would jeopardize his safety because she wouldn't be able to get back if la samahallah something came and tried to maul him or eat him or take him away. So she had to calculate what is the safest thing, what is the best I can do here. Well, if I'm not too far away and I find two high tops, peaks of hills where I'm most visible, where if I call, there's a higher probability of someone hearing me. And if I do this as many times as I can before I get tired, and as long as I can see him, then this gives me the best chance at maybe bringing someone in. And if not, then it's not. Like if I don't achieve anything, well, at least I tried. You have to make sure that Yawm al-Qiyamah you meet God, and you cannot, the argument that you didn't try your best is not going to pound you down to the ground. Because it will absolutely disarm you. If the argument is that you didn't try, or you didn't try as hard as you could, or you had more to offer, you just weren't willing to offer it, then you're in trouble Yawm al-Qiyamah. This is a problem. This is going to be a real problem. Because what is the good comeback to that? What comeback could you possibly have to say, well, I didn't think it was going to be helpful? Well, you don't know that. You don't know that. You could easily find Yawm al-Qiyamah that, yes, if you just did it one more time, things would have been different. So you don't know. So all you can do is just your best, and then you have to leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do it in whatever way. Some scholars say that had she not made this trip, then Allah wouldn't have sent Jibreel alayhi salam. Like she would not have been worthy of this, of Zamzam, and what she ended up having in her life. She had to prove that she was willing to, and it's called in our deen sa'i, that's what it's called. And you go and you perform it. Every Umrah and every Hajj is a pillar. You're walking in her footsteps. You even jog where she jogged. Just to remind you that you are always obligated to give it your all. You have to try your best. No matter how useless it may feel. And sometimes it will. Sometimes you'll feel that what is my effort doing? Right? What is my effort doing? What is my one person effort in not polluting the environment or not? What was just one person? What is my contribution here? It doesn't matter. You were never asked. It's not your job. The Prophet ﷺ, في hadith ibn Majah and Ahmad, and you know this hadith, this is a very famous one, it's an authentic hadith, where he said عليه الصلاة والسلام إذا قامت الساعة وفي يد أحدكم فسيلة فإذا استطاع ألا تقوم حتى يغرسها فليفعل. It's a very famous hadith, we all know it really well. What does it really teach? The day of judgment happens and you have a plant in your hand, or a small tree, that before the wave of the blow in the horn hits you, if you can put it in the ground before that, put it in the ground before that. Even though it's a tree, trees need decades to grow. Yawm al-Qiyamah is happening now. This is literally the most useless behavior I can think of. It's a complete waste of time. It really is. Forgive me. It's a waste of time. Yawm al-Qiyamah is happening now. The earth is going to cease to exist as a planet over the next couple of minutes. Why am I putting a tree? Because your job was never to contemplate the results or the outcome. Your job was to actually know what your job was. Just trying and do what you got. What can you do? What is the best step right now for you? Then do that. And give it your best. Give it your all. Islam wouldn't have made it this far if the Prophet ﷺ didn't have this mentality. Like if he didn't think that way, none of this would have been possible. And there's so many examples, and the one that I like the most is during that 10th year of Hajj, or the Hajj of the 10th year, forgive me. Just since we're talking about Hajj, I might as well use this example. Hajj, as I explained to you, happened before the Prophet ﷺ. It happened before Ibrahim. The concept was there. Ibrahim just rebuilt the Kaaba so that people knew where it was, because it got lost over decades, over centuries. So once they knew Ibrahim alayhi salam was able to perform Hajj, and it continued. The Arab continued to perform Hajj from the time of Ismail alayhi salam. They just filled it with shirk. They filled it with polytheistic behaviors and rituals, and it was no longer what it was. But the Arab knew what Hajj was. So every year, at the same time, in Dhul Hijjah, the Prophet ﷺ was free from the fear of being assassinated, because it's Ashhur al-Hurum, it's the sacred months, and they wouldn't kill him in front of all the Arab. It would ruin their reputation, so he had some flexibility. So the first time he would go out and talk to the tribes, looking for support, was the 10th year of his prophecy, alayhi salatu wasalam. It's a famous time, because he had 27 or 26 different attempts. I think he spoke to 26 different tribes, and they all turned him down. Some of them very disrespectfully. And he stayed, alayhi salatu wasalam, in Mina to the last moment. He was the last person to leave Mina on the last day of Hajj. He was the last person to walk away. And he went back, and he'd go back and forth in Mina looking for people, for a tribe that's still around to talk. And there was no one left except 6 teenagers. 6 young men. The eldest was 21 years old. As'ad ibn Zurara. 21 is the oldest of these 6 young individuals. They were shaving their heads because they were too poor and too young for anyone to give them a turn, so they were the last in line. There was absolutely no one left. And had he not waited till the end, and had he not even tried, to me, in that position, I don't think I would have went and approached 6 teenagers. No, I wouldn't have. It's not that I don't. I wouldn't have done it. It was just, I've been here. He's been there for 10 days, alayhi salatu, and he spoke to Banu Shayban, and he spoke to Bani Amr ibn Sa'sa'a, and he spoke to all the big ones, and the young middle ones, and the small ones, and none of this worked. And these are just 6 random individuals. They don't even have a banner. They don't even have, they don't have a leader amongst them. It's absolutely worthless. Or is it? Right? Or was it? Had he not went and spoke to them, alayhi salatu wasalam, then none of this would have happened. This whole story wouldn't have been possible. But it comes from the same, it's rooted in the same understanding that Sayyida Hajar alayhi salam taught us in this behavior, where she walked back and forth between Safa wal Marwa, because that's the best she could do. She didn't have something better that she could have done that she didn't do. This is all she could do, so she did it. And she called at the top of her voice, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Jibreel alayhi salam. And she obviously sees Jibreel, so she runs over to her son Ismail. I'm pretty sure she forgot about this whole journey altogether. I'm pretty sure she never thought about this again, because it was just something that she did in a moment of despair. But she was taught by Ibrahim alayhi salam, Rasulullah, by the Prophet Ibrahim, of what it is that you need to do as a Muslim. So she did it. And we go and we walk in those footsteps to reenact and remind ourselves that really at the end, this is all you are required to do. Yawm al-Qiyamah, this is what you're going to be held to. The sa'i, what did you do? How hard did you try? How much did you push yourself? Did you exhaust all of your resources? Or did you not? Or did you half-ass it, forgive me, and just put in 50% of what you could have, or less, or more? I don't think it's possible for us as Muslims to talk about a change in the future if people don't devote themselves and dedicate their time and centralize Islam as the main cause for their lives, prioritize their deen. And then when you do that, by the way, a lot changes for you. Your job becomes a mean to an end. Your job becomes a means to an end. Your career is a means to an end. Your family that you're building and your relationship with your spouse and children becomes a means to an end, which is what it's supposed to be. And that's way easier. It's a way better way of living your life. If they're ends themselves, then when you lose them, it's devastating. It's beyond devastating. If you lose family or part of your family, or you get fired from your job, or you don't achieve your stuff, achieve what you want in your career, it becomes so devastating that it's hard to get over. But if they're not the goal, if they're not the ends, they're just a means that you're using to serve the main cause. And the main cause, in its essence, is not about the outcome. It's just about the effort. It's just about that you're trying your best. Then you're not going to be devastated, because if the goal is Islam, and you're like, I need to make sure Islam is strong and united by the time I die, that's not up to you. And that's not what you're asked to do. And you're probably not going to see that in your lifetime. If you do, great, but you probably won't. And that's not what you're going to be held to Yawm al-Qiyamah. You're going to be held Yawm al-Qiyamah to the sa'i, to the Safa and Marwa, to running back and forth. Did you do everything you could, even if you thought at the moment that you did that was useless? That the powers that were in the world surrounding were way bigger than you, had more abilities than you, that your small contribution was not actually making a difference in the scales, it wasn't really tipping anything. Did you still try your best? That's what you have to come and prove Yawm al-Qiyamah. It changes your mindset, wallahi. It's a mindset change, and it's very helpful, it's very healthy. It allows you, it breaks the shackles that when it comes to career and success, especially success that is going to be measured by money or family, when success is going to be measured by how many children or how well they turn out to be. When these are just means to an end, you're raising them well so that you're strengthening Islam. You're becoming better at your career so you have a stronger voice to actually push forward a narrative. You're becoming wealthy so that you can put it into the service of your deen. And you know that you're not the one who's going to control the outcome for this deen. You're just going to control. And that's what sa'i is. And I'm taking time because it's one of the 4 pillars of Hajj. You have to understand it well, or else you'll just be walking back and forth and it will become, once we talk about the Prophet ﷺ's way of doing it, you'll see there's a certain degree of profoundness to it as well. But we're all walking the footsteps of a mother. Now I'm going to add one more layer to this. I want you to imagine, because when we think about Hajj, we're thinking about it going back and forth, but I want you to think about Hajar for a moment. What degree of passion did Hajar have during those moments regarding her effort? You're thinking about a devastated mother who's scared for the well-being of her newborn child, right? She is running between Safa and Marwa, doing her sa'i, with the passion and the love of a mother that is scared for the well-being of her child. Is there energy or passion in this world that is more powerful than that? And what other example can you give me of a circumstance where there is more passion and more devotion than a young mother who is scared for her newborn child? And the analogy that I pull from this for you is that if our sa'i is not at least of that standard, it's not going to be helpful. Like, not only do you need to try your best to achieve, even though it may not be useful in your eyes, you have to do it with the passion of a scared mother for her child. Like, this is how you have to see your deen. This is how you have to see your story. You have to work towards the outcome. Work towards, your sa'i has to be performed towards the outcomes with the passion of a young mother for her newborn child who's hungry and thirsty. And if we don't have that passion, like if that's not how we feel towards it, if that's not how we're worried, if that's not, then we're not doing it right. So not only do you need to give it your best, physically, you have to walk back and you have to do everything you can physically, you have to do it with the correct amount of passion and emotion as well. And that's why Hajar was chosen for this, because absolutely there's no example that will trump this one. There's no example that is more powerful than Hajar alayhi salam scared for her newborn son, her only son, her firstborn. Like, if you put all the elements, this is the peak of human emotion. If you put a father, it wouldn't be the same. Like if it was Ibrahim, no, it wouldn't be the same. Yes, a father will love his son, for sure, but this is different. Men don't even understand what it means. Like, you and I don't even comprehend what Hajar was carrying inside her as she was running back and forth, calling at the top of her voice, because we don't understand what it means to be a mother. We don't understand what it means for us to brew life inside of us and then bring it forward, and that life require to take its nutrition from our own bodies and offer it to them. This is an extremely intimate relationship that is unparalleled in the universe, really. And she's running back and forth with that passion in her heart. So now when you go do sa'i, that's how you're going to do sa'i. We're going to do sa'i, exhausting all, understand, you're trying your best with the passion of a young mother over her firstborn. And this is why we do it. And this is why it's a pillar of Hajj. It's a pillar of Umrah. If you don't do them, then you have to go back and do it again. Because this is a main piece. It explains one of our central themes of being Muslim. As a Muslim, you'll never give up. You never sit around and wait for things to happen. And you're never going to accept the status quo. You're always going to push back. You're always going to get up. This is I'll just end with this, and this will be my last reflection for you. But it's something that it's not even necessarily from the religious realm. Like, it's something that's well understood, that the people who succeed in life are the people who don't stay down. Every time they're knocked down, they get up again. No matter how many times they're knocked down, they get up again. A part of you respects that, especially if you're watching from afar. And a part of you fears that if you're on the other side. If you're playing a game, what you want is the opponent to resign. You want them to give up. If they don't resign, then they still have hope, and you still run the risk of making a mistake, slipping up, and then losing that which you've got. It's just how life is. As long as you don't, throw in the white towel or wave the white flag, as long as you're still trying, then you can still get somewhere. And this is the concept that we have in Islam, that you always get up. No matter how many times you're knocked down, you're going to get up again and try. You're going to dust yourself off and try again. And even if your opponent is asking you to stay down out of mercy, you don't. You just keep on getting up. You don't tap out, you black out. You stay in until the end. And this is the concept that the Prophet ﷺ brought with his own behavior. He was relentless, alayhi salatu wasalam. This is a term that I think is important when you describe him. He never gave up. He was tiring. He was a tiring opponent. He wore you out. He wore you out because you're like, I want to put 50% of my effort towards this problem, and the rest of it I want to enjoy my life. But this guy, he does nothing else. It's 100% of his time in one direction, and he won't give up. And no matter how many times we knock him down and his family and his reputation, he just keeps on coming time and time again. And they couldn't put up with it, and they finally had to give him the time of the day to listen to what he had to say. It wasn't that he was bringing, he just when they listened to it, when he finally got them to listen to it, they changed their mind. And this is the concept of sa'i. They keep on going. You keep sa'i. That's why you do it 7 times. It's back and forth. You keep on going. There's no end to it. In Arabic, 7 is a number that explains infinity, right? Or repetition. Why? For example, just quickly, there are 7 days in the week. What happens after the 7th day? It's just over again. So it's just, Arab, when they say, for example, 6 has a difference. 6 means long. Anything that is, fi sittati ayyam is a long period of time. Sab'a, when you use sab'a means it's going to be repeated time and time again. It's done, you start again. It's done, you start again. That's why, استغفر لهم أو لا تستغفر لهم إن تستغفر لهم 70 مرة. If you make for them 70 istighfar. So what, if you made 71 it would work? No, it just means 70 as in if you just keep on going. You finish and then you start 70 again. You keep on, so the number 70, so Arab, not only do they know the numbers, but each number has a symbol. Like each number means something. And even today, if you go to the Middle East or to Egypt or to Jordan or to Syria, you'll find that people use numbers to describe something. To describe, if they want to describe a lot, they'll use one number, a little, another number. If they want to spite you, they'll use one number. There'll be numbers that are just used for purposes, and this is well established. It's a habitual activity that the Arab have had for 1,000 years, or for thousands of years. So when Hajar saw Jibreel, she got scared because she didn't know what he was doing and who he was. So she runs over to Ismail, and water starts bubbling from the ground. يقول النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام فأخذت تخوصه. She started to put banks around the water that's coming out. فقالت رحم الله هاجر لو تركت زمزم لسال عينا. Zamzam would have turned into a spring if she just left it. If you didn't muck with it at the time. I always wondered why he said that, alayhi salatu wasalam, when I was a kid. I could never figure out why he said that when I was a kid. And I had to ask one of my teachers to explain. And when he said, one of my teachers said, قال لما أتاها الفرج عبثت به. When she was granted faraj, she meddled with it, and she shouldn't have. Like she was granted the out. She was granted she was granted that which she was looking for. She was granted it. But the problem with us is that we have to be in control. Like there's a need that we've got to control things. And a lot of what Sa'i teaches and what Hajj is that you're not in control. You're not in control of anything aside just from maybe a few aspects of your own inner tweakings. That's it. You don't really control anything else. But we love to be in control. So imagine this lady who's walking back and forth. She's doing something that she knows didn't. And then a miracle occurs. An angel comes and strikes the earth in the middle of nowhere. Water starts to gush from the ground. What contribution could she possibly offer to make this better? Like, what exactly is she going to offer here that's going to improve this? There's nothing to improve here. but she had to try something. She's not being blamed for this, but the Prophet ﷺ, Rahimallahu Hajar, may Allah have mercy and compassion upon her. If she just let it, didn't meddle with it, it would have just turned into a spring that would have filled Arabia with water, but she played with it. Of course, this water now turned into a pond, fresh water she's drinking. She's able to feed her son. Water in Arabia brings attention. It draws attention. All of the tribes in Arabia only live around miyah. And the word ma, ma bani fulan, ma bani fulan, you're talking about where they lived, where they resided. Because Arabs are always going to reside beside some form, like some source of fresh water. And that fresh water would belong to this tribe. So if you're going to drink from it, you had to come and ask for permission. And wars would occur in Arabia over sources of fresh water. And the stronger tribe would claim the source. And of course, they would sell it to the poorer tribes to keep them poor. And the same financial dilemma that has always existed. Hajar was granted Zamzam. Water now exists in a part that there was no water. Vultures and birds start to roam in the sky. They start to circulate in the sky. Arabs knew what that meant. It happened to be that during this time, a Yemeni tribe, an Arab Yemeni tribe called Jurhum, from the Qahtanites of the land, would suffer a break of their dam. Again, water is a big deal in this part of the world, and a dam would break loose, and it would flood all of their lands, and it would ruin all their homes, and it would destroy, it would cause losses that made it impossible for them to stay where they are. And the wars that came from this loss of stability made them move north. They didn't want to stay where they were anymore. They wanted to go up north and look for, they were headed towards Damascus, or the Holy Land. That's where they were headed. But on their way there, they see the birds. So they know there's something there. Either something is dead, an animal, or there is water. So they go close, and they camp a little bit apart because Arab were used to the fact that if there's water, you don't want to just go up to it because you don't know who's waiting on the other side and what exactly. So they sent someone over to the water, and they find this lady and her son, and she had made a small little hut for herself, alayhi salam, to live under. And she came, and he came, and he asked her for permission to drink from this water. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His taysir, He sent to Hajar people who had some code of honor. They could have easily, obviously, overpowered Hajar and her son and taken the water and enslaved her and her son. But they had a code of honor, and they asked, who does this water belong to? She said, it belongs to me. This was granted to my son and myself, and we are ana fulana, and this is the name of my son, and this is my husband. Ibrahim alayhi salam was at that point of a certain reputation. Like he had been alive long enough, and he had been around in the journeys that he had had in the Holy Land and Egypt and back and forth, that people knew of this man who has brought monotheism to the region and had challenged kings and changed some of the political climate of certain parts of the area. So they were there was a certain degree of respect to Ibrahim. So they asked her for permission to use the water. وَقَالُوا بِالثَّمَنِ, and we will, we use the water and we will pay you for it. This is one of the narrations. There are other narrations, obviously, for this story, but I think this is the one that makes the most sense to me, or this is one that I think is most sensible. So she agreed, and the agreement between them was that Jurhum were not going to go north anymore. Why would they? They have a spring of fresh water gushing right from the middle of the land. Zamzam is amazing. Where it is very, there are not a lot of examples of something similar to Zamzam. Usually, sources of fresh water in Arabia come at the foothills of large mountains or between two mountains. This is where you're going to find water. Zamzam is literally in the middle of the desert. Like there's nothing. Like there's no ending of a mountain where it is. It's very fascinating. My father worked in the Zamzam pumps for like 3 years in Mecca. When he worked in Medina in the where the madallat, the umbrellas that open and close. So he went there and he automated those for them they hired him on a 6-year contract to do it. He did it in 6 weeks, and then they didn't know what to do with him anymore. So they put him on the sound system in Medina to take care of the sound system in the Haram, and he would fight with Sheikh Hudayfi every Ramadan because his voice was too powerful. And then when he was done doing that, they sent him over to work in the pumps in Medina. So I went with him down into where Zamzam is. Like to where the pumps exist and it's absolutely fascinating. They don't allow for tourism there, unfortunately. They don't allow people to go see it. But because he had special access, I was able to go see what it looked like down there. And the scent, it's a very unique smell. Like the scent of water there is just very different. I've been around wells and big wells and deep wells and in other parts of the world. It doesn't smell the same. It doesn't look the same. And this is a source of fresh water that's been running for thousands of years. Like it's been running for thousands of years, and they don't even know exactly where it's pulling the water from, and it just keeps on. And it has a very unique taste to it. If you drink it raw, without putting any other, it's a very, very unique taste. I don't think there's any water that tastes similar to it. And the first few times you drink it, you get a little bit sick. Like your stomach, it doesn't feel. It takes a while for your stomach to get used to it, and then when you get used to it and you drink other water, it bothers you, so it becomes a problem. So they mix the Zamzam with something else to kind of ease the taste a little bit. But if you drink Zamzam, like raw Zamzam, with nothing else mixed into it, it's one of the most unique tastes you'll ever, like you'll never forget it. If, I know a lot of people today, they drink it like, it doesn't taste different. Yeah, because all you're drinking is mixed. It's Zamzam mixed with a lot of it. Because obviously the amount of Zamzam that is being demanded by people is way more than what one, like this per cubic square meter, it's impossible for anything to supply all this water for people. But if you do, in the 90s, they didn't have that system. So you could drink it raw. Like if you went to the place, you could drink just Zamzam. It's a very, very unique taste. Anyways, so, and it's one of the parts of Hajj. One of the sunnahs of Hajj is that you drink from Zamzam. That you go and you find a place, you drink Zamzam, and you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Hajar did. When she was granted Zamzam, she made dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save her and save her newborn. So he sent Jurhum their way, a tribe that had some degree of honor. They were a tribe who had high ethics. Regardless of what their deen was, they were ethical. And they decided that she was worthy of being paid. So the rent that she was paid for this is what allowed her to live and take care of her son. Now her son Ismail is going to grow up with this tribe that obviously, these are good people, or else this could have been very, very different, obviously, for him. He could have grown up in slavery or being killed, or not grow up at all. But he grew up with people who had a certain degree of ethics, and min afsah al-Arab. They were people who were extremely articulate, and they spoke the most original dialect of the Arabic language. So Ismail alayhi salam, he didn't know how to speak the dialect of his father. Like he didn't learn what Ibrahim, the Hebrew, he didn't speak what Ibrahim alayhi salam spoke, even though they're both Semitic languages, because he grew up, by the time he was 5 and 6 and Ibrahim came back and visited again, he spoke fluent Fasih Arabic, and his father didn't. So the communication was Hajar alayhi salam. She had to translate, had to teach Ismail some Hebrew and teach Ibrahim some Arabic so they could actually communicate, and just as an interesting point. Ibrahim would come and visit his son multiple times. And the dua obviously he made, رَبَّنَا إِنِّي أَسْكَنْتُ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ عِنْدَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ. Ibrahim, when he left his son and his wife, he said, Ya Rabb, I put them in a place that has no green. It's empty. I want them to continue to establish their prayers. I don't want them to lose their deen over this trial. فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِنَ النَّاسِ. Make af'idah, the word fu'ad is a consciousness, right? فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ. Send to them people who have a certain degree of consciousness, like are good people. تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ. Go to them, are drawn to them. وَارْزُقْهُمْ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُم يَشْكُرُونَ. And then grant them provision from you so that they may be grateful. And then the dua of Ibrahim was accepted, and that's why he was able to grow. The second part of the story that we have to bring up happened when Ibrahim came back and visited Ismail when he was just entering his teen years. He was 13 or 14 years old. This story is obviously told in Surah Al-Saffat, and I've talked about it many times in the past. This Ramadan we had went through that surah, and I explained this in depth, but I'll summarize it for you, inshallah. When Ibrahim came and visited him this time, and he stayed with his wife and his son for a number of weeks. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ. Right? This is what the ayah says. قال يا بني إني أرى في المنام أني أذبحك. So he's staying there for a couple of weeks with his wife and son, and he's sleeping at night, and he sees a nightmare that wakes him up shivering. He sees himself slaughtering Ismail alayhi salam, performing the actual act of slaughtering his own son. So he wakes up in terror. Now what he's really scared about is what this meant. Because prophets, alayhimu salatu wasalam ajma'in, a part of wahi for them, revelation, are their visions, what they see in their dreams. Jibreel comes with another part of revelation. There's different forms of them receiving revelation. One of them is the visions that they have during their dreams. But the visions are not as conclusive. Like they're not decisive. Right? Because sometimes prophets can have other dreams that are not meaningful. So he woke up in absolute terror that this was a vision. He felt like it was, but because it's not a decisive form of revelation, tarawwa, he took his time, which is why that day is called Yawm al-Tarwiyah. Another reason for why it's called Tarwiyah is not just that the Hajjaj go and fill their water. It's because it was the day that Ibrahim alayhi salam tarawwa. He took his time. He wasn't hasty. He waited. He's like, well, maybe this is not what I hope it's not. I'm hoping that's not this. So he gave it time. And then he saw it again. And then he saw it again. And once he saw it 3 times, which takes us to the day of Nahr, right, which is the great day, the day of Eid, he knew that this was revelation. So he turns to his son Ismail, and he tells him, "Ya bunayya inni ara fil manami anni adhbahuk." I'm seeing in my vision that I'm slaughtering you. فانظر ماذا ترى. So take a look and think, and reflect. What do you think? Like, what do you think we should do here? It was not something being forced upon Ismail. Ismail was, at that point, as far as the Quran is concerned, a consenting adult. He was of an age where he could make his own decisions, and people matured much earlier back in those days. It definitely wasn't 18 or 21. It was much earlier. So he asked Ismail what to do. Now again, Ibrahim, as I explained to you yesterday, is someone who argued a lot, who asked many questions, was always critically analyzing everything that he came across. The only times he didn't do this is when he was given a command by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the example in the Quran of Ibrahim here is fascinating because there's not one question. Like Ibrahim doesn't ask any questions. He sees the revelation and he goes and he tells his son, this is what I need to do. There's nothing there. Look into every other story of Ibrahim. You find Ibrahim just arguing with kings and with people, and he asks God, I need to see how you do something. Explain to me how you resurrect. I know you do it, I just don't know how. I want to see it. Like this was his nature, alayhi salam. He was a critical thinker, and he didn't accept any fact without checking or validating it. But when he was given commands by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's not when he didn't do that, right? Because that's what submission means. That's what Islam means. That's why, if you were to take the main theme of Hajj, it's this story, right? At least for us, people aren't going to Hajj. Because we don't really participate in Hajj, except on the day of Eid, where we go and pray Eid. And that's the day of Nahr, that's the day of the slaughtering, the day of the offering. And what happened that day of significance, or what's the main event of that day? The main event is this story. Is Ibrahim alayhi salam saying this to Ismail. No questions asked. He didn't turn to God in objection. He didn't ask any questions. It makes no sense, right? Like, why would he slaughter a 13-year-old boy? It's his only son. And after leaving him and his mother in the desert alone, and miraculously they're not dying or getting enslaved or being raped or none of that. And now once he's old enough, بلغ معه السعي, meaning he came to, and you can see the word here, السعي again, just if you're following along the little connecting the dots in the Quran. فلما بلغ معه السعي, when he came to the age where he was able to strive himself, now he could actually do things that were beneficial. He could put his effort as well. Children before that, they're just running around aimlessly. It's okay, they're children. You want to have a childhood, make sure that they're having fun. But then they come to an age where they can also exert effort. They can also work towards a goal. They can also put in their energy towards something. So now Ismail came to an age where he could do things, where he wasn't useless anymore. He wasn't just a child running around aimlessly, just giving his parents a headache. He could actually do stuff which is important. It's the time that you wait for so that you can actually teach them and you can help them grow. At that moment, he is told that he has to slaughter him. And there's absolutely no reason for this. But Ibrahim knew better than to question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so he didn't. He asked Ismail, what do you think we should do? قال يا أبت افعل ما تؤمر. He said, oh my father, do that which you are commanded to do. ستجدني إن شاء الله من الصابرين. You will find me, with the will of Allah, a perseverant person. If this is my fate, if this is what Allah... Ismail alayhi salam had grown up to be a Muslim. But this is where this word originates from. Up till this moment, this word didn't exist. Your description as a human being today, as a Muslim, it didn't exist up to this moment. I mean, this is not the word that they used. They used other words, tawheed and iman and ubudi and all these stuff. But the word Muslim and Islam had not been born yet. It was born that day. It was that day where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَا وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ. Once they both submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They submitted their wills to the will of God. Where Ibrahim accepted the nightmarish trial of slaughtering his own son, and where Ismail accepted his own mortality and death, which at a young age is a very difficult thing to do. Right? And they walked towards the manhar, or the madbah. It's on Jabal Thabir. It's towards the end of Mina. If you look at the, where is it? Here we are. So it's over here. It's in this area over here. It's close to where Mecca is. So why do we know this? Because the Jamarat actually are before it. So they're right after the Jamarat, right after the area of where the three Jamarat are. Over here. This is where he went. We know that because as he was going there, he was commanded to do it in a specific place. Like the revelation was not just that he was going to perform this activity, but the revelation also had within it where he was going to perform this activity, on Jabal Thabir, where he was going to go, alayhi salam. So he took his wife Hajar and took his son Ismail, and they walked towards this area. Ibrahim carrying the knife and them walking quietly. I can't imagine what they're thinking at this moment. I really struggle with, when you think of this story, you struggle with all three of them. You struggle with Ibrahim alayhi salam being told to do this. You struggle with Hajar accepting this. And you struggle with Ismail knowing what's to come. Like, it's all fun and games until your life is on the line. Forgive me for saying this, but it's all nice and fun and smiles and salams and it's all good until your life is on the line, until you know that, until the end is that near to you, unfortunately, because mortality is a very difficult concept to comprehend and to accept. So all three of them are struggling with something different, right? It's a real struggle. As they are going towards it, Shaitan would present himself, as he did to Adam, to all three of them separately, one by one. Coming to Hajar, saying, what is this? How many times does he have to try and kill him? Well, he didn't succeed the first time when he left you alone in the desert, so he's now going to come and actually do it himself. He's lost his mind. Who does this? What purpose could this possibly serve? What God would tell him to do this? Subhanahu wa ta'ala jalla fi'ulah. Understand what Shaitan is saying? So Hajar would know this Satan, so she denounced him. And she would تَرْجُمُهُ حَتَّى سَخ until he disappeared. Then he would come to Ismail alayhi salam. He said, بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ يَقْتُلُكَ? For what sin is he going to kill you? What wrong did you do? If someone should be sacrificed, he should sacrifice himself. Why would he sacrifice you? You have done nothing. You've lived most of your life without him being there, and now that he decides to come along, he's going to kill you? This is what you're going to get from your father. You haven't even got married yet. You haven't lived any part of your life. What? So Ismail would do the same when he would throw the stones upon Shaitan hatta sakh. And then he would come to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and he would do the same thing to Ibrahim. And I don't know what he said. I don't want to imagine what he said to Ibrahim, because it was probably filled with a lot of doubt in his Lord and doubt in the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Ibrahim did the same thing. فَرَجَمَهُ حَتَّى سَأَخْ until he disappeared. And that's why you go perform Rajam. The 3 days of Tashriq that happen later in Hajj, you go and you perform Rajam. And whether you are a father, whether you are a mother, whether you're a younger person, Like whatever you are in your life, whether you're someone who's still young, doesn't have a family to take care of, or you're someone who has a family, other people to take care of, whether you're a male or a female, you can relate to one of these three individuals, because either you're a male who's responsible, a female that's responsible, or a young person who still doesn't have any responsibilities really in life. And whatever you are, you will relate in this story to one of these three people. And you will go and you denounce shaitan, and you get rid of, because shaitan, he doesn't come, see, shaitan has no control over you. This is an important piece. When you are throwing those stones, you're not throwing them on shaitan, because shaitan doesn't really, you're throwing it on the weaknesses that shaitan is using to get to you. Shaitan is very, inna kayda shaitani kana da'ifa. The plotting of shaitan is very weak, it's nothing. Shaitan can only harm you if you are open to being harmed. Like if you're allowing for it. If you don't allow for it, he has no in. That's why the Prophet ﷺ tells us about Sayyidina Umar, إِذَا سَلَكَ عُمَرُ فَجًّا سَلَكَ الشَّيْطَانُ فَجًّا آخَرَ. If Umar walks down a road, shaitan takes another one. he doesn't come close to him. He has no way in. He has no way into these people. Like he had no influence on the great Sahaba of the time of the Prophet ﷺ. These great names, they had no chance. They had learned from him ﷺ how to protect themselves, how to build their immunity against shaitan. He didn't have an inning. There was no way to get to him. So he looks for weaknesses. There has to be a crack in the wall that you built so he can get through, so he can actually build some doubt, build some desire, build some fear. He has to do something. He has to furnace an emotion that'll be, it's you though, but it's you, it's not him. It's not that makes sense. He doesn't have anything. He get rid of him. It's just you. So when you're throwing those stones, it's not really on him. It's on what he is capable of finding within you in terms of your weaknesses. It's you denouncing the pride and the arrogance and the insecurity and the fear and the laziness and you're getting rid of that. That's what you're doing. Or else shaitan is not worth it's not worth doing it. He has nothing on you. Shayateen al-ins are much more powerful. The shaitans from the human race are more powerful than the shaitans from the jinn. They don't do anything. It's the human beings that you need to be aware of, honestly, much more. So he would do this. They would do this, alayhim salatu wasalam, and this is what you go and do. It's symbolic. You are not. That's why there's no need to get upset and start slamming the jamrah. It's not shaitan. It just symbolizes something for you. It's you taking on as you walk through life, as you make your decisions, as you devote yourself. He's going to come to you when you're young, when you're old. He's going to come. He's going to try and poke holes. He's going to try and instill doubt. He's going to try and make an argument for you why you shouldn't do this. And either he succeeds or he doesn't. And you go and perform Hajj, and it's like you're cleansing yourself. I will no longer submit to you. I will no longer listen to you. And I will not allow you to influence me ever again. My submission, like Ibrahim, is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I will submit to him. You're not going to have to submit to him as Ibrahim and Ismail did, alhamdulillah, which is one of the biggest blessings, which is why Hajj is, which is why Yawm al-Nahr exists, because you're not going to ever have to do that. But he did. Ibrahim did. He had to pass this test, this trial. He didn't know the outcome. You know the outcome. He doesn't know the outcome. Neither does Ismail. And it wasn't a bluff. It wasn't a bluff either. So they made it to the manhar. They made it to the madbah, to the mountain. And Ibrahim knew where, because he saw it, he knew where he had to be, and there was a stub that he was going to. And he told Ismail, you have to put your head there. So Ismail lies there and he opens his neck. And Ibrahim has a sharpened knife. And Ismail tells his father, I should put my head down. I should turn my head downward. فَإِنِّي أَخَافُ إِذَا نَظَرْتَ إِلَيَّ أَلَّا تَقُومَ بِهَا. I'm scared that if you look at me in the eyes, you can't do it. It's too difficult for you. So maybe we don't face each other as we do this, so you can actually get this done. Because if I lie there staring at you, this is going to be very awkward, and you're your father. You can only put up with so much. This is very painful. And if I'm looking at you, I may get too scared. So maybe it's best if my. So he said. So he would turn his. They're trying to make sure this happens. Until this moment, maybe it's a bluff. Maybe it's a bluff. Maybe as they're doing this, something comes in and saves the day. Right? That's what happens in movies. When before the person you love gets killed, you're hoping someone intervenes and and saves this person from dying. So both Hajar and Ibrahim are hoping something happens. Ismail is hoping nothing's happening. No rumbling in the mountain, no Jibreel wings in the horizon, nothing. So Ibrahim takes the knife out of its socket. It's nice and sharp, cuts through. And it cuts through flesh, no problem. Ismail looks away. Ibrahim has the vision, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. And he strikes with the knife. He strikes, no bluff. He strikes his own son's neck with the knife. He just didn't cut. That's all. Just didn't cut. So he strikes again. Didn't cut. So he strikes one more time. It didn't cut. And once he did that, he was called. وَنَادَيْنَاهُ أَنْ يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ قَدْ صَدَّقْتَ الرُّؤْيَا. O Ibrahim, you have fulfilled the vision that we gave you. إِنَّا كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Indeed, this is how we're going to reward those who show excellence. إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْبَلَاءُ الْمُبِينُ. Indeed, this is the greatest of all trials. وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ. When we ransomed Ismail with a great dhibh. Dhibh is basically a kabsh or hadi. And it's a kharoof. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Ibrahim, Jibreel brought Ibrahim a kharoof. You were commanded to slaughter, but we have ransomed Ismail out, and you're going to slaughter this instead. So Ibrahim alayhi salam would strike and then they would eat the meat, and that's why you perform nahr. Now you're wondering, well, why, here's the point that you need to understand. What are you celebrating that day? Because we're slaughtering, obviously we slaughter sheep or camels or cow, the an'am that we have, and then we feed the poor and we feed people. But why? You do this because you are lucky enough to live a life where your Lord never commanded you to do something that was not in your best interest. That is what you're celebrating on the day of Eid. And that's the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The story of Ibrahim alayhi salam is at least, it's multi-level, but at least has two dimensions, at least. The first one is full submission, where the word Islam was born, aslama, when they gave up their free will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was an absolutely senseless command. They could not figure out why. They had no reasoning for it. There was no logic attached to it whatsoever. But they accept God and they accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they have belief. So they give up their free will to His. He said this is what we do, then this is what we do. I don't understand why. It makes no sense to me, but it doesn't have to. He said we should do it, then there must be a good reason, even if I can't see it. So I will do it. So they gave up, even though they had every reason. There were a million reasons why they shouldn't do it. There's a million arguments why this makes no sense. It's a bad idea. Murdering a child. It's a bad idea. In every direction it's a bad idea. But they did it anyways because they submitted their will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not interested in the blood of Ismail. Nor is He interested in you ever in your life performing any action that is not going to benefit you, ever. He never commanded you. He says this in Surah Muhammad. He said, Ha antum tud'awna litunfiqu. No. وَلَمْ يَسْأَلْكُمْ أَمْوَالَكُمْ إِنْ يَسْأَلْكُمُوهَا فَيُحْفِكُمْ تَبْخَلُوا وَيُخْرِجَ أَضْغَانَكُمْ. In the end of Surah Muhammad. He said that He didn't ask you for all of your wealth in your life. He didn't say give all of your wealth to charity. He told you give 2.5% of capital that sits around for a year. If He asked you for all of your wealth, you would have been too cheap to give it. You would be obligated to give it. Giving all of your wealth away is not in your best interest. But if He said that you have to do it, subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you have to do it. But He didn't ask you. He could have, but He didn't. But He could have. And had He asked you for it, you would have had to do it. And then you wouldn't have done it because you're too cheap to do that. And then you'd be punished for it, and then the whole thing would be a mess. But He never asked you for it. He never told you to do anything that wasn't beneficial, ever. Every command that you have in your deen is in your best interest. The ones that you like and the ones that you don't like. Whether you enjoy their command or you don't, whether you agree with it or you don't, it's in your best interest. Maybe you see it, maybe you don't see it, maybe you'll see it later, maybe you won't see it in this lifetime, you see it Yawm al-Qiyamah. It doesn't make a difference. It is within your best interest because He made one of our days of Eid to celebrate this one topic. Because He told Ibrahim alayhi salam, He gave him a command that had no benefit to it at all. To test his submission. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, he passed, he accepted. He went ahead and did the one thing that made no sense to him, the thing that he loved the most. He gave up the thing that he loved the most, his own son, with no explanation and no logic that he can figure out behind it. He did it, but then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't want it. And He gave him the caption. He made this a date, a year, an annual reminder that you were never asked to do anything that wasn't beneficial. So please perform the actions that you were given, the rituals that you were offered. Why? Because they're all beneficial to you. They're all helpful. Why wouldn't you? Imagine if he asked you to do stuff that weren't. Imagine. What a mess. It would be impossible. It would be very difficult. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is of rahmah, that He never asks you to do anything that's not helpful to you, that's not within your best interest. So at least do that. And that's the point of Yawm al-Nahr. When we slaughter on the day of Eid, when the Hujjaj perform this slaughtering, they do this reminding themselves, alhamdulillah, we were only told to do things that were helpful, only good stuff, never anything that was harmful. And that's the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail. We have a few more minutes. I'll finish the last piece. I thought it was going to get more far than this. Ibrahim alayhi salam would come back again a number of years later. This time he was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do something different. وَإِذْ بَوَّأْنَا لِإِبْرَاهِيمَ مكان البيت ألا تشرك بي شيئا وطهر بيتي للطائفين والقائمين والركع السجود. And when we showed Ibrahim the place of the house where it once was beforehand, and we told him you need to denounce shirk and purify this piece of earth, and then you need to rebuild. وَإِذْ جعلنا البيت مثابة للناس وأمنا. And this goes back to what I said yesterday. When we made the house a place of a sanctuary, a place of security, of peace, of safety. That's what masajid are for. The houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are sanctuaries for His creation, for His servants. A place they can come to get away from the brutality of the world that exists outside. Here you're safe. Here you're under the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being served by the people who are taking care of His house. This is the whole point of masajid. واتخذوا من مقام إبراهيم مصلى وعهدنا إلى إبراهيم وإسماعيل أن طهر بيتي للطائفين والعاكفين والركع السجود وإذ يرفع إبراهيم القواعد من البيت وإسماعيل. So Ibrahim alayhi salam came to his son Ismail and told him, I've been commanded that you and I, father and son, are going to build this house together. So the first time it was built by a husband and a wife, a spouse. This time the house is going to be rebuilt by a parent and a child. I'm not sure if this is something you think about symbolically. But the first time was Adam and Eve, with spouses building a house, building a home. Now it's going to be a parent and a child that are going to build a home, because it's just the next step of it all. And then the third one is with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, where the ummah does it, right? So they start يرفع إبراهيم القواعد من البيت. They go and start digging into the earth to find the foundations of the house that was once there, and they start building it. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, the maqam where you see when you go there, this is where he used to stand for hours, staring at the Kaaba, seeing if he got the dimensions right, because he didn't have all the tools. This is not something he had done before. He was not a builder. This is not what he knew how to do. And Jibreel would explain things to him, but he's trying to make it as symmetrical and as possible. So he would stand there for hours until he left dents in the ground where he was standing with his feet, alayhi salam, trying to perfect what he was doing. And as he's building this, there's a place of rock that he can't seem to find a proper rock to hold it, which is later on going to be the Hajar al-Aswad. But he would tell Ismail, go find me a proper rock to put here. And Ismail would tell him, Inni kaslanun ta'ib. I'm tired. I have no more energy. I don't want to do it anymore. So his father would yell at him, go find me the rock. So he'd go and look for the rock. By the time he came back, Jibreel had gone to the base of Jabal Qubais, Abi Qubais, the mountain where Adam alayhi salam died. That's where he died alayhi salam. Jibreel would go and he would extract from this mountain a rock that he had brought there before Adam alayhi salam even came to earth. It was brought from Jannah, was hidden in Jabal Abi Qubais. He would extract it as a rock that came from Jannah. He would give it to Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam to put in this perfect spot, and he would put there, and that would be the Hajar al-Aswad. And then Ismail would come back carrying a rock and tell his father, where did you get this from? قال أتاني به الذي لم يكلني إليك. The one who brought it to me is the one who didn't make me dependent on you, alhamdulillah, in my life. I don't have to depend on you. Classic father-son type of problems. As they are doing this, يرفع إبراهيم القواعد من البيت وإسماعيل ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. Allah, accept from us as we perform this ritual. Accept ربنا وجعلنا مسلمين لك. Allah, make us true Muslims. Now the word is there. And after that, now this is the word. ربنا وجعلنا مسلمين لك ومن ذريتنا أمة مسلمة لك, and from our descendants and our progeny, people who will continue to submit to your will. وأرنا مناسكنا, and show us our rituals so we do this correctly. وتب علينا, and then grant us repentance. إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ومن يرغب عن ملة إبراهيم إلا من سفه نفسه. And who is it that walks away from the legacy and the teachings of Ibrahim except someone who treats himself stupidly, treats himself with irrationally? Why would you walk away from this? They would put in the black rock, and Ibrahim alayhi salam would be commanded to perform the tawaf. And he performed tawaf. We don't know that that it was performed 7 times at the time of Adam. We know that it was done by Ibrahim alayhi salam 7 times. Tawaf, as we know today. And it's funny that they didn't know this back then. Tawaf was a way to show something respect. If you want, like walking around anything, like circumambulating, is an ancient behavior that is designed to show respect to something. But also in its essence, it is solidifying whatever it is that you are performing tawaf around as your center. Meaning wherever you are, this is you just rotate around this. This is the center. Whatever you are, you're rotating around it one way or the other. You're always attached to it. You're never leaving it from your sight or leaving it from your vicinity. And we know today that everything from the atom, from the quarks to the center of the galaxies, everything is rotating counterclockwise around its center. Everything. From the smallest being that we have been able to see and measure to the largest beings that we still don't fully understand how they function, but everything is rotating counterclockwise around its center. And then you go do that as well. And for the few moments that you're doing it, you're in synchrony with everything else in the universe. You're in synchrony with every other creation, with every other element that exists within the cosmos, and you are also circumambulating, rotating counterclockwise around your center for the few minutes that you do this. And Ibrahim was commanded at that point, وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا. Call upon the Hajj, and then Allah will send you people on foot and on horseback. And they came to him, alayhi salam. And Ibrahim, alayhi salam, was educated by Jibreel in terms of what the rituals of Hajj were. So he went and he stood on Arafah. And the narration that we have is that Jibreel would be with Ibrahim on Arafah, telling him, Ya Jibreel, Ya Ibrahim, A'raft. Ibrahim, do you understand? Do you comprehend? يقول إبراهيم نعم عرفت. Yes, I understand. One of the other reasons it's called Arafat is because it's where Ibrahim alayhi salam had everything explained to him by Jibreel. Where Jibreel explained to him all that which was not still clear to him. He had a lot of questions, Ibrahim. Jibreel filled him in on all the questions that he needed, that went unanswered for him. Arafat, Araft, you understood? Yes, I understand. And Jibreel, and also Ibrahim, just like Adam and Eve understood on that mountain, also Ibrahim would come to that full comprehension on the mount of Arafah. And then and we talked about offering udhiyah. We've run out of time, khalas, we're done. I'll just end with this piece because I think when the Prophet ﷺ ascended to the 7th heaven through Mi'raj, every sky he talked to someone. In the 7th heaven, he would speak to Ibrahim alayhi salam. How does he describe him to us? قال وصلت إلى السماء السابعة فإذا بأبي إبراهيم قد أسند ظهره إلى البيت المعمور وحوله صبية يلعبون. I came to the 7th heaven, I saw something that was identical to the Kaaba. It's called al-Bayt al-Ma'mur. It's the equivalent of the Kaaba in the 7th sky. And Ibrahim alayhi salam is reclining with his back towards the Kaaba. See, al-jazaa min jins al-amal. Whatever reward you get it from the same essence of the work that you did. Ibrahim exhausted all of his resources. He put all of his energy in building the Kaaba. To the best of it, Yawm al-Qiyamah, he gets to recline on al-Bayt al-Ma'mur. And he sat there playing with the children of the Muslim children who pass away early. All the Muslim children who die in their young ages, they go and they spend their time with their father Ibrahim playing in front of the Bayt al-Ma'mur for Kaaba. And he would speak to the Prophet ﷺ, a long conversation that unfortunately I don't have the details for you. I know one piece. He told him, أَقْرِئْ أُمَّتَكَ مِنِّي السَّلَامِ. Send my salams to your ummah. So عليك السلام يا إبراهيم. So we answer him and عليك السلام. And tell them أن الجنة قيعان وأنها طيبة التربة. Tell them that Jannah has beautiful soil and it's open land. وأن غراسها سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. And then if you want to fill it with trees of fruit, then it's filled by their invocations of subhanallah and say these words and fill Jannah. So when you come, it's not empty land, it's filled land. And that was what he sent us, alayhi salam, from the seventh heaven. I'll end with that, inshallah ta'ala. We will continue the third and final line of Hajj, inshallah ta'ala, next week on Saturday.